of these bad people who are trying to scam. So I hope nobody got caught in their scam. I mean, some people did, unfortunately, and I feel bad. But we will get these people. We will hunt them down and bring them to justice, as President George Bush said. We're going to hunt them down and bring them to justice. We'll call the Mossad on them. That's it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Chag Sameach. Happy Tu B'Shvat. Today's a very special holiday. And on Tu B'Shvat, we celebrate. I'm just going to remind everyone, if you have thoughts or comments, I'm going to open the floor to thoughts and comments from time to time. The rest of the time, I'm going to request that nobody interrupts because we are live on YouTube now, and we don't want disruptions during the YouTube session. While we are, Baruch Hashem, a beautiful audience here at Chabad House, we also have a nice participation online as well, and we want them to also be able to join us each day. So I thank you all for your participation, but let's not be disruptive so everyone online can also enjoy the shir. All right, my friends, today is a very special holiday. It is called Tu B'Shvat. We celebrate what is the new year for trees, right? And it always is on the 15th of Shvat. In the Holy Land in Israel, and I guess you could say in the whole Northern Hemisphere, the winter months are the months of Teves, Shvat, and Adar. Today is smack in the middle. It's the 15th of Shvat. Teves already was completed. Adar's to be, or right in the middle. In the middle of the winter months, and I'm sure you'll get all the other insights and ideas at the Seder, so you'll hold off till then. But the idea that our sages tell us that right here, where it's the coldest day of the year in the Northern Hemisphere, and particularly in the land of Israel, is the day when you seem to be no potential for growth, for blossoming, for growing. And yet it's specifically on this day that we celebrate the New Year of Trees. And I guess you could say what we're celebrating is the potential that there can be growth, that things can come about. And that's a very important celebration, really worthwhile on this day of the year. I think in general, it's a realization for ourselves, not only about trees. And that's what I'm going to talk about today, is this concept in general about a world of difference. And to ask ourselves, what impact do I make? Some people say to me, I'm over the hill, I'm old, I'm far gone, blah, blah, blah. Somebody said it, we can't teach an old dog new tricks. You're not a dog, and even if you're old. In fact, yesterday I was officiating somebody who had passed away, Bernie Galgut. There's a Bernie Galgut who comes to our shir. It's his cousin. Bernie is well, please God, he'll be here. Yeah, he's all right, but his cousin was 93 years old, and he used to say, I'm not old, I'm just surrounded by old people. So don't be old. We want to all stay young. These 118 canine hara, right? The judge asks the elderly lady at the hearing, how old are you? She says, I'm 97. I'm canine hara, I'm 97. The judge says, I don't understand. Finally, the lawyer says, let me ask her. Mrs. Goldstein, canine hara, how old are you? She says, 97. So you have to know how to put it into perspective. But this day of Tu B'Shvat, let us see that it's not only about the trees, and that I'll leave for the Seder discussion, but for our discussion here is to talk about how we are like trees. Now, I once made this presentation once before, many years ago, so I'm recycling something that I've not used in a bunch of years, but the idea behind it was, you might remember our good friend Alex Moraney. Alex used to sponsor for Tu B'Shvat. He used to bring us trees, and maybe some of you have the plants that Alex gave you over the years to bring to your homes, to take home. And people, I probably have those plants still sitting in my house. A bunch of years, Alex loved bringing those. He had two holidays he enjoyed, Tu B'Shvat and Tu B'Av. He loved making shidduchim for senior citizens. He said it's part of the longevity plan. So we're going to dedicate today's shir to the memory of our dear friend Alex Moraney of blessed memory. And so let's think about ways that you celebrate today. The simplest and easiest way of celebrating today is eating fruits. What kind of fruits? Well, any fruits, but specifically, you mentioned pomegranates. Pomegranates is one of the 7 kinds that the land of Israel is blessed with. Let's look at the full list of fruits or 7 kinds the land of Israel is blessed with. Starts with chita, which is wheat. So maybe we'll have some rolls or something to have some bread during the lunch today. Saora, barley. We'll see. Maybe Vusi can find some barley and maybe we'll make a barley soup. It's not a soup day, but still some barley. Then comes Geffen, grapes. The land of Israel, the first fruit that's mentioned in the Torah for the land of Israel is grapes. And then we have dates. And then we have pomegranates. And then we have olives, figs. And then the pomegranates, then the olives, and then the dates. So those are the 7 kinds. As long you don't have to eat them all today, but it's symbolically you want to eat some of them. So for sure we have grapes and pomegranates here for you today. We also have dates. We don't have figs. The Beis Din doesn't allow it. And then maybe some bread and maybe even some barley or something there. But the point is also not only to eat specifically the foods that the land of Israel is blessed with, but also something that you have not eaten in this season. So if you haven't had pomegranates in the season, I've not had pomegranates till last night at our beautiful function at the Capitol Hotel. I've not had pomegranates since Rosh Hashanah. So pomegranates was perfect fruit to say the bracha Shechianu on. You only have to say the blessing once, Shechianu, and that covers all your new fruits. As long as you have one new fruit, that's fine. But the idea, obviously symbolic, firstly, to have fruits the land of Israel is blessed with. But if you can't find those, which I said we have here, we have grapes, we have olives. We have olives as well. Okay, we have olives here. We have the grapes, we have the olives, we have the pomegranates, we have the dates, and we have bread. So you have at least 5 out of the 7. We have honey upstairs if anyone wants. So what are we missing? Potentially the barley. Okay, we have at least 6 out of the 7 for you. We have dates. The figs we couldn't get, like I said. Either way, if you want a date, in fact, my wife and I go on dates every day. Yeah, I go out Sunday and Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. No jokes. It's perfect for Shalom Bayis, these types of dates. Anyways, no jokes. The idea that we're going to discuss today is Tu B'Shvat, that it's not only the new year for the trees, but I want to talk about how there are also lessons we could all learn today. By the way, there's another particular fruit that hopefully I'll get to at the end of today's shiur that many people have accustomed to eat today, although it's not specifically related to, well, it's related to Tu B'Shvat, but it's not one of the fruits that the land of Israel is blessed with. Anyone know which one I'm talking about? Carobs, buxer. I didn't bring you that, but for some reason when I was a kid in school, they always gave us buxer, carobs on Tu B'Shvat. So again, what are you going to do today? Eat fruits, have specifically the ones that the land of Israel is blessed with. A new fruit, pardon? What's charuv? It's carob. Yeah, carobs. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the significance of this day and some of the lessons we could learn, and particularly how we could apply it to ourselves, right? Now, let's first look at the tree, actually. Okay, let's look at the tree. Trees, obviously, are very beneficial for us. And I have no doubt at the Seder, you'll learn a lot of the other things, but let me give you a few ideas what importance trees play in our lives. And I'm happy to take your ideas. I'll first share with you a few that come to my mind, and then I'll open the floor for yours. We know that trees produce oxygen. Yes? We need that to survive. Okay. What about the reduction of carbon dioxide? Okay, so trees play an important role in our lives, in the atmosphere, in the environment, and they're important for us, no doubt. Trees are also an important component of the natural landscape because they prevent erosion, and there's all kinds of weather, ecosystem, and foliage, and all that stuff. Even the tables that you're leaning on right here are made from wood from the trees, that the trees provide the wood for us, right? Whether it's for the building, this building has plenty of wood in the structure. The tables are furniture, even firewood, very good, yes. Even the books, you see I got a book here. The books are made from paper, which comes, pardon? Parchment for Torah? No, parchment does not come from, that comes exactly, yes. Parchment comes from animals. But the books, the Torah book that you study from, that does come from a tree. Okay. Any other points that I didn't cover of the significance and importance of trees that Fruit. Okay, so we're going to go into that now. Fruit. Very good. Fruit are very important for us. So we discussed oxygen. These slides I try to use as a review of what we talked about because of the Chinese proverb. The first you have to tell people when. Yep. The first you have to tell them what you're going to say. Then you tell them. And then you tell them what you said. So what do you say?
I say pollination.
Pollination. Yeah. What else? That's part of the ecosystem. Anything else? Avril, you got one for us. What are the benefits of the trees to you? Give us something.
Shade.
Huh? Shade. Oh, that's a good one. And I will get to shade just now. Shade is a very important one. Yeah. Prevent soil erosion. Okay. So we have lots of wonderful benefits from trees. They're good. Yeah. Birds build their nests in trees. They also build their nests on my door post. I thought I had the mitzvah the other day. My wife said, "Look, we got a bird's nest, and the birds keep flying to it." And it was right on top of the door, pooping on anyone that walked into the house. So she asked me to please take it and move it away, which I was going to do. And I thought I could do the mitzvah of Shiluach Hakan, where you get to send away the mother bird, right? But it didn't work. There were no birds in there. They left. I took it down while they were gone. All right. Either way, my friends, we see some of the benefits of the trees. Very good discussion about that. My question to you is, while we talk about the benefits of the trees, let's go back. Here, we have a discussion to have. What is the connection to our own spiritual lives, right? Why do we need to have a whole Jewish holiday on this day about trees? What do trees got to do with us, right? Obviously, we just discussed all the important elements and benefits of trees in our lives and with our physical and our environment and all the wonderful things that you mentioned. But what do they have to do with our spiritual lives? I understand physically. We said the wood and the oxygen and the carbon, all those stuff is very important. Thank you. But I want to discuss with you today and dig a little bit deeper into the inner core of the tree. You're with me? And what we will hopefully discover is lessons from the tree that hopefully we can nurture our own spiritual lives as well, our souls, our spiritual well-being, that I think is important for us. So let's look at the human tree. In the book of Devarim, the Torah famously compares man, us, human beings, Homo sapiens, to trees. What does the Torah say? Ki ha'adam eitz hasadeh. For man is like a tree in the field. So if we are like a tree in the field, there obviously are more comparisons and ideas for us to learn from the significance of a tree that I want to be discussing with you today. Important lessons that we could all take in our own lives, how we are like a tree and what lessons we could take and learn from that. Okay? So here's how Isaiah the prophet put it. He says, Ki kimei ha'etz, as the days of the tree, Yemei Ami are the days of my people. So the prophet Isaiah is clearly comparing us to the trees. So we have two verses in the Torah that tell us that we are like trees. All right. So we say man is like a tree in the field. And what we're going to discuss today, what is the comparison between people and trees? What's our affinity to the botanical universe? How many people here like going to the botanical gardens? You know, I think you could get a nice pensioner's discount if you go to the Walter Sisula Botanical Gardens, and there's beautiful waterfalls there and all kinds of botany. So it's worthwhile. Go there. Stella, which one? Kirstenbach. It's a little far from here, Kirstenbach. It's beautiful. It's magnificent, Kirstenbach. But you got Walter Sisulu. You got the Botanical Gardens very close to here, next to the zoo. Yeah? Eitz Chaimi, beautiful. The Torah is like a tree of life to those who hold steadfast onto it. That's right. Absolutely. Very good. But let's take it a little bit deeper now. Do trees have feelings? Can they talk? Can they walk? Can they think? Why in the world is a human being compared in the biblical imagination to a tree? And it's something we want to discuss. Think in your own analysis, my friends. What is the comparison between a human and a tree? Now, pardon? Yeah, please. Now's your chance to talk. The fruit that the tree bears are our progeny. Okay, very good point, and we'll discuss that. Great. What other? Isabel, what do you say? Living and breathing. The trees need TLC, tender loving care. Absolutely. Doesn't stop growing. Very good. I'll share with you two insights I picked up. I heard at the CMR Rambam last night that we had at the Capitol Hotel. One of them was a story about a real true story. I don't remember the name, but there was a explorer who tried to climb Mount Everest. And while this explorer failed a few times, eventually he or she scaled the mountain. Edmund Hillary, thank you. And what did he write? He said that while I failed at my attempt once or twice, I will eventually get there because the mountain can't grow, but I can. We grow, we learn, we develop, right? Very important point. The other idea, Rambam Maimonides, while he teaches us, and today is the final day of the learning, the teachings of Rambam's, the Siyama Rambam, for the people who study all the mitzvahs of Rambam, and everybody could join along. Today's the final day, and tomorrow we are going to start afresh and learn Rambam from the beginning. I think there's some important lessons that we could learn from Rambam, and after coming from a beautiful, magnificent evening that we had last night, a really inspiring and energizing, a very deeply meaningful event, I think it's worthwhile to take a few lessons that we took, that we all learned. And one of the things the Talmud tells us, I want to get the words correct, is Ki chazina tzurva merabanan, that when you see a group of scholars that the Shalim Masechta, who completed a tractate of study, in this case, many thousands of Jewish people who completed the study of Rambam, the laws of Rambam, Avidna Yom Tov Rabbanan, it becomes a Yom Tov, a holiday for everyone. And I think that's an important message to all of us, a celebration that we can all be part of, even if we didn't study the Rambam ourselves. But it's certainly an inspiration, something we can emulate, something we want to be part of. It's not just finishing something, it's the fact that people study uplifts everyone. I want to share with you a story, two stories. One I heard from Rabbi Mafson last night. Rabbi Mafson related that after the Holocaust, there was an elderly gentleman who was a survivor, and he made a siyum on a short tractate, on a tractate of Talmud in Israel. And many people came to be part of it, and they asked him what inspired him to do this, what was it about? And he said that there was a man in the concentration camp with him. And this man did not survive. But the man every day was studying his Talmud. And when this man said to him, if I don't complete it, I beg you to complete it for me. So he made a big celebration for it. But I want to tell you another story that stood out to me. You're all familiar with Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, was one of the great Torah luminaries of the past generation, lived in New York on the Lower East Side. He had a yeshiva. And Rabbi Feinstein was approached one day with a question by a gentleman, one of his students in his community. What was the question? This young man was a Baal Tshuva, returning to Judaism. And while he was not raised religious, his father and mother were not observant, he, at some point in the middle of his life, started becoming more religiously observant and connected and committed to Yiddishkeit. So this man started studying Gemara every day. Now, at first, his father, who was a businessman and secular, was mocking him, made fun of him. What are you studying, that Talmud? And he made fun of his kid. How's that going to help you earn a living? What are those words? And the son and his father, had words with each other. But as the father got older and was more impressed with his child, the father took back his scolding words that he scolded his son with, his reprimand. And he said, my boy, I was wrong. I see how it's shaped your values and your ethics and your personality. I would love to learn some Talmud with you. This is a man in his 80s. The son says, you'll never understand the Talmud. You don't even read Hebrew. He says, okay, so teach me reading Hebrew. And here you have this elderly gentleman who starts learning to read Hebrew at an advanced age. And from learning Hebrew, it's not just the letters, it's the vowels, and then putting the words together. And now you have to translate the words to know what they mean. But this man was committed, he was dedicated, he was retired, so he had some time. You know what one of the seniors says to me while he comes to the shir? He walks in with his cane. He says, Rabbi, you know why I walk with a cane? I ask why. He says, because I'm not able. He says, but you know why I come to your Torah class? Because I'm cramming for the finals. Sweating. Anyways, this elderly gentleman started to study. And day after day of commitment and dedication, after a bunch of years, he finished one chapter of Talmud. One chapter. Generally, a siyum is not from finishing one chapter. People have a mini siyum when they finish a whole tractate. There's how many tractates? 70, 72, 73 tractates. By the time you finish everything, then there's a big siyum at the Met Stadium in New York, you know? So then you get to finish, and then you have a really big siyum. And this man says he wants to make a siyum on one chapter. In his mind, that you only make a chapter, a siyum on a celebration on everything, not on one chapter. So he came with this question to Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. My father wants to make a siyum. It's unheard of, one chapter. And Rabbi Moshe, maybe it was even one page. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein says, not only can he make it, I want to be present and speak at this siyum, at this celebration. And I don't remember the exact words he said, but he said, what an inspiration that an elderly person who didn't grow up religious and took all this time to study, that's the kind of siyum I want to be part of. And I think it's an important lesson to all of us, because especially today, when so many Jewish people are concluding a session of the study of Rambam's Mishnah Torah, and Rambam describes that his teachings encompass Kol HaTorah Kula. The entire Torah laws are included in his teachings in one unified work. And so when Torah is unified, then what we have is that the Jews are unified. As this week's Parsha, we receive the Torah. And what does it say in our Parsha? There were Ki'ish Echad B'Lev Echad, like one people with one heart. And honestly, I'm sure we could use a lot more Jewish unity these days. We certainly need it. And that's why I think it's so pertinent that this siyum takes place on what day? Today, of all days, on Tu B'Shvat. What a day to celebrate Torah. The very first halacha begins with the root of everything. In fact, we have cards that we could give you. I have to see where the leftover cards went. Kavon was supposed to collect them. What's the first mitzvah in Rambam that we're going to study tomorrow? Yesod HaYesodot V'Amud HaChachmas. Rambam says the foundation of all foundations that a Jew must know, everything begins with knowing there is a Borei Olam, a creator of the world. Recognizing, acknowledging that we didn't come from nowhere. There's a creator here. And then we go to the very last halacha, which is today, last law that's learned. And he describes not only that we are acknowledging a creator, but that there could be a better world if people followed the prescribed laws that the Torah gives us, the laws of the Torah. A world without war and no jealousy, a world of where goodness flows freely, a world where there would be no competition and illness and problems, but rather a world that would be busy with one thing, ladas es Hashem bovad, just to know God alone. And he concludes with the words, Kimala haaretz de'es Hashem. We believe there would come a time when the whole world, everyone will be occupied with one thing, acknowledging an awareness of God alone. And in fact, it's a beautiful song. Maybe we'll sing it together. Ki malaretz de'es Hashem, kamayim layam nechasim. The whole world will be filled with the knowledge of Hashem, like the waters cover the seabed. Umalaretz de'es Hashem, kamayim layam nechasim. Umalaretz de'es Hashem, kamayim layam mechasim. So just think about this. Rambam begins his laws with what? Knowing God. And he ends with a world that is filled with that knowledge. To me, this is a comparison to Tu B'Shvat, because it goes from roots to fruits, beginning to end. That's Rambam. That's Tu B'Shvat. Now, of course, this is a day that we don't just look back and say, what was. We look back and say, what will be, right? How am I going to how am I going to contribute to a better world, to a better future? How am I going to study more myself? So that's what you're left with today, is to learn how to study. And maybe, I've done in the past a crash course on Rambam, so I don't know if you want that again. But the point I wanted to share with you was that by studying Rambam, who encompasses the entirety of Torah, it guides us as a Jewish people to learn more of how to live as Jews through our guidebook called the Torah. And I recommend we open it. Why? Because as everything you buy comes with an instruction manual, and when you open and read the instruction manual, you know best how to use that device. Well, wouldn't it be nice to know how to use ourselves? That's the instruction manual called Torah. So open it, study it, learn it. I find 7 days without Torah makes 1 week. W-E-A-K. So fill your week of Torah and you'll get what Eli mentioned, the Eitz Chaim, the tree of life of Torah. Now, my friends, let's really go a little bit further. While we might look different than the trees, which is true, but there are numerous things that we can learn from the tree that we could internalize in our lives. I want to focus on 3 of those things. What are they? Roots, trunk, and fruits. Okay, the roots, body, and fruits. Let's explore the makeup of a tree. We all know that we have these 3 components, but let's look at them, let's explore them, let's analyze them, let's discuss exactly the makeup of a tree and see how that pertains to each of us, okay? So a tree's primary components are these 3 that we discussed. The roots, which anchor the tree to the ground and supply it with its water and its other nutrients. Although it's beneath the ground, it's not seen. And in life, I'm sure many of us realize how much you do for your children, how much you do for your family. You are their roots, their anchor. And without you, they wouldn't be. You are behind the scenes doing all those things. Then, of course, comes the body of the tree, right? That's the trunk and the branches. And they are what comprise the body of the tree. That's perhaps what you see. But then finally we have the fruits of the tree, which is harvested and enjoyed by humans, by animals, by the environment. And of course, they contain the seeds through which we could reproduce that tree and have future plants as well. And we've discussed that at great length in the past, but I want to take it a step further today, because the Torah compares us to trees, because a human being, my friends, each and every one of us is also comprised of all 3 of these areas. We have the roots, we have the body, and we have the fruits. So this composition, it holds on to, we could say, works in 3 areas. And we're going to discuss today, time permitting, psychologically, chronologically, and spiritually. Are you ready for the deep dive? Any questions before we go into the psychological roots? Let's talk psychologically. Let's start on a psychological level. On a psychological level, the roots of the trees, which obviously you can't see because they're all buried underground, it's mostly invisible, you can't even see it. That represents the subconscious layer of the human psyche. Let's think about it. Which are for the most part invisible. I don't know what's going on inside of you. Obviously, I could get an idea when I see your facial expressions. On the face, I could get, which is why, what's the Hebrew word for face? Panim. Ashena panim. But you know what else the word panim could mean? Panim. What's panim? Inside. On the face, you do get an impression, a reflection of what's going on inside the person, right? So there is, but not the depths. I don't know what's going on deeply inside your subconscious layers of your psyche, right? That's mostly invisible. But I do have an idea. When I look at you, I could see something of it. And that's why I say, just like the roots of a tree, the composition, the breadth, the depth of the human subconscious is disguised, and that's the roots. That's like the roots, the manifestation of the of our deep self. Okay, so that's the subconscious side, the roots of expression. Let's now take a look. I'm sorry that those who are here don't get a chance to see the PowerPoints, only the online people, but that's, you can thank ESCOM for not giving us electricity today. Whoever said that load shedding is gone, huh? Let's look now at the body of the tree. The electricity's gone too. That's the power away my data so quickly because it was always running out. Okay, for now, we are back online. Okay. You do have something cool. The code, that would be great. But for now, I went onto my phone, and my phone's internet should hopefully get us by for the time being. All right, ladies and gents, sorry for the disruption, but we are back. What were we talking about? We spoke about on a psychological level. We said that we discussed the roots, which is our subconscious. We discussed the body, which is the part we know or people think they know of us. And now on a let's hope. Danke, Menir. Okay, we're back, my friends. This is life in Africa. What can we do? Internet gives us trouble, but we're here. We persevere, right? That's the Jewish story. Let's continue. So we were talking now about the psychological fruit. And what we said was that our fruits are grown. The fruits, I guess, represents the impact whether you want to say it's your children or others that you have an influence on in your lives. And not only that, just like fruits possess the seeds in order to grow more fruit, right? I'd say the same thing. The fruit have the seeds that embodies our ability to plant a seed in a fellow human being and to see other people sprout and to grow and to bear their own fruit. Those are some of the benefits that we see with the fruit and some of the lessons we could take from fruit. Okay, let's take this a step further. Everybody with me? Now I want to go into another area of our lives on a chronological level, because I told you we're going to discuss this psychologically, chronologically, and spiritually. So we spoke now psychologically. We said that we have the body, the fruits, the roots and the fruits. Now we're going to go on a chronological level. I would say the roots represents our younger years, okay? When our subconscious convictions and our feelings are being molded. And being that many of us, most of us here are parents, I'm sure we could relate to this. We know the importance of investing time and energy into our children is one of the most noble and critical endeavors we can engage in. And this doesn't just apply to children. Sometimes it's easier with your grandchildren, with your eneklach. And please God, eneklach. Yeah, your great-grandchildren. But our sages tell us a scratch on the trunk. You know what happens if you get a scratch on the trunk of the tree? Garnished. No big deal, right? But if there's a defect on the roots, my friends, then the entire tree could be impacted in dramatic ways. So, my dear friends, the significance of childhood is oftentimes invisible, like the roots of a tree. But we have to remember, it is the foundation of everything that comes later. Nurture those roots, and your tree will be beautiful. But if we don't nurture those roots, then unfortunately, we see children who are wilde chayes. They weren't raised in the right way. King Solomon says, Chanoch lanar al pi darko. Raise a child according to his. Then gam ki yaskin, even when they grow old, they will hopefully be on the right path. So don't let the defect on the roots, don't let there be defects on the roots, because that can have long-lasting, very long-lasting effects on the child. So can anyone give me any examples of ways to ensure that the young ones are nurtured in the right way? Even though discipline is not pleasant sometimes, but sometimes the kids need it, right? When I look here at a letter, the Rebbe discusses this, the importance of educating children. There's a gentleman who called me yesterday. He's done very well in his life. And now, in his, I would say, more mature years, he's probably at least 15 years older than me, he started going to yeshiva. And he started studying. And you know what this man said to me yesterday? He feels bad he never gave his kids a Jewish education. They were too good for King David. So he sent them to Red Hill and other prestigious schools. But now that they are adults, they don't have the Yiddishkeit. And he feels bad that he deprived them of it, he told me. That's about a Jewish education. That's the spiritual benefits of nurturing children in their youth. But either way, I think for us the message is, if a middle-aged person who's already, had a good run in life, if you have a compromise, a challenge, a struggle in your beliefs, I don't believe it's going to affect you too badly. But a young child who's deprived of their spiritual well-being, I think it has a much greater and deeper impact on their future. And so as we graduate childhood and we become self-sufficient humans, then we're more like the tall, what would you call it? The projective trunk of the tree, right? We've emerged to become independent and self-standing adults. And I see this beautiful letter. The Rebbe took time, it's incredible, to write letters to people, to respond to people. I want to share with you two such letters. One, I have them both on my phone. I should have picked up the pictures for you. One is a letter the Rebbe wrote to kindergarten children. And what's amazing about that is that even kindergarten children got the attention of the Rebbe. We had a visiting scholar here last month, Rabbi Levi Wolf from Sydney, Australia. He's a man in his mid-50s. He described, I told you the story then, so I won't repeat it all right now, but how he was a young boy, 8, 9, 10 years old, and he had a question on the parsha of the week and sent a letter to the Rebbe with his teacher, because he lived in New Jersey, and his teacher lived in New York, so the teacher took the zettel, the little note, and gave it to the Rebbe's secretary. And late that night, his parents got a phone call from the Rebbe's secretary. They were all worried because they didn't know their son sent this letter. They were worried, why is the Rebbe contacting them late at night? The Rebbe wanted to give an answer to their young son. Excuse me, ladies, please. Thank you. The Rebbe wanted to send a letter to their young son to give an answer to his question. Isn't that something? That a young boy was deserving of this answer. And if not the young children, then who? Let me tell you 2 other stories. One is the letter to the kindergarten children, which I'm not going to read the whole letter to you, but he writes to them that he received their arts and crafts. This is a letter in 1965, their Tu B'Shvat arts and crafts. And he says to them in this letter that I saw how each child drew a plant and that would grow in the future to a beautiful tree. And he was taking lessons that the plants they drew for Tu B'Shvat was similar to themselves in the sense that they get to grow as well. Okay, and he said, it's how beautiful that the plants represent you. You were drawing it about Tu B'Shvat. But he says, when one plants a seed in the ground, they must protect it from weeds and other harmful things. And he goes on to talk about how the young children too, they're called Neitza Matai Masayada. God says in the Torah that you are the branch of my planting, the work of my hands, in which I take pride. And he says that Hashem wants you to nurture your souls, protect your souls from negative influences, from detrimental effects out there. So it's just fascinating to read this, how the Rebbe takes the time to write to young kindergarten, preschool kids, and that's fascinating. While we're talking about letters from the Rebbe, I want to share with you one more letter. And a beautiful story of a man named David Weiler. And I feel like I want to read it to you because, let me just find it on my phone. It's an incredible story that happened in the 1980s. And here is the story, and here I have the picture of the individual. Let me see if I could forward it to my phone, to my computer. Oh, I can't show it to you on the screen. I forgot. So I'm not gonna put it on the screen because you won't see it anyways. But I have this right here in front of me, the picture of the person in the story, and it's a fascinating story. I'll try to share the story with you in a nutshell, but it's a worthwhile story, and I have the letter in front of me. So if you want to read the story, if you want to see the letter, you can do so at your leisure afterwards. I could show you the letter and the picture, and I'll read you the letter because it's a worthwhile letter to read. But the story goes that there was a gentleman. Let me just see. I think his name is David Weiler. Let me find it. David Weiler. Here we go. David Willer, maybe you pronounce it. Anyways, in short, the story goes that there was a Jewish family living in Chicago, Illinois. And this family was not living a very religious lifestyle. Why? I don't know. The Holocaust, everything else they went through, it wasn't exactly attractive to be openly Jewish. There was a lady here I knew in Johannesburg, Minnie Shulman. Did any of you know Minnie Shulman? Minnie Shulman was a survivor of the Holocaust. She managed in the late 30s to get into a convent, a Christian convent, I don't know exactly which stream, in Italy. And one day, one of the people there was telling her, the Nazis are going to come here, they're going to find you, you're a Jew. So in the nunnery, in the convent that night, she described to me how she escaped from the convent, middle of the night, she climbed down, she ran into the forest, and Minnie there befriended a whole bunch of men. She was the only girl. And they fought, and he was part of that. And the fascinating thing about the story was I met Minnie at our parents' home at Pioneer House. I know Pioneer House in Orchard, Oaklands. Anyways, I used to visit Minnie from time to time. Other times I would send my yeshiva bachrim. One of our senior members here passed away in 2017 or 2018. He used to come here. He was a regular to our program. His name was Preston Israelson. Anyone remember Preston? He used to come. He used to sit in this room with us, be part of the shiurim. Preston passed away, and his family asked me to officiate the funeral. It was December. It was Hanukkah. My wife took 3 of our kids to go overseas for a family simcha, and I was here with the other 3 kids. And, running around getting the kids. I had 1 kid at Crossroads School, 2 kids in Torah Academy, 1 in preschool, 1 in primary school. And I had to get to pick them up on time. So I asked the Chaver Kadisha if I'm officiating Preston's funeral in the morning, which is what I requested. I asked them if I could officiate the funeral in the morning. Chev said to me, look, we don't like to have a funeral in the morning and another funeral late in the afternoon. It doesn't work well for our staff. But if you're willing to take the funeral that's scheduled for 2:30 p.m., because when there's no rabbi related to the deceased, Rabbi Fox, who's the Chaver Kadisha's official rabbi, he officiates the funeral then. And Rabbi Fox is only available at 2:30 in the afternoon. So if you're willing to relieve Rabbi Fox and take on the other funeral in the morning after Preston's at like 10, 11 o'clock, then if you're willing to take a package deal of both funerals, then we'll do it. I said, sure. They gave me the name of the deceased, which I didn't recognize at the moment for some reason. They said the family's coming from overseas. The kids aren't all married to Jews, but they're coming from overseas, so you'll only meet them in the cemetery. Okay? I officiated Preston's funeral. I come back to the Ohel to meet with the family. Family starts talking to me, and they tell me their mother, who was Miriam Schulman, and she was a Holocaust survivor, and they were just giving me some information. They started telling me she was in a monastery, pretending to be a nun. And I said, oh, Minnie Schulman. I knew her, and I start continuing the story. They said, how do you know the story? I said, I used to visit her, and I knew her, and she would tell me all this. They said, this is unbelievable. When their mom passed away, and now they had to fly from Switzerland and Germany to come for the funeral, they were talking to the Chaver Kadisha. The Chaver Kadisha asked, who's your mother's rabbi? Said she didn't really have a rabbi. She lived in KwaZulu-Natal. She didn't raise her kids Jewish due to everything she experienced in the Holocaust. But there was one rabbi who used to come visit with his little kids. They don't know his name. But the mother used to talk about this rabbi with little kids who used to come visit. So David Weber was running the Chevda and says, there's 150 rabbis in Johannesburg. Probably 100 of them have little kids. How am I supposed to figure out which one it is? They couldn't figure out which rabbi. They're going to start calling every rabbi. Did you know this lady? So they gave it to Rabbi Fox. Rabbi Fox was only available in the afternoon. I wanted to do the funeral in the morning. They gave me a package deal. Divine providence. We call this Hashgacha Pratis. I get both funerals. I get the funeral, not only of Preston, who requested, but even this lady, Mimi, who wanted me to do her funeral, but didn't know my name. Maybe she knew my name, but her kids didn't. And they got it. Isn't that incredible? Divine providence. Let me tell you this divine providence story. It's a little bit different. So this family, raising their kids, completely assimilated, secular, no connection to Yiddishkeit. And they were so happy when their daughter marries out of the Jewish faith. That's great. Now there'll be no Jewish connection in the future. Wonderful. I mean, technically there will be. The kids will be Jewish. But their son-in-law was a nice Irish Catholic fellow. Turns out, the Irish Catholic guy, or goy, is taking an interest in this religion that the family's shunning. Now, I bet if they were proudly Jewish, he would be like cringe or whatever. But because they were shunning their Judaism, he took more of an interest in this Judaism. And the more he seemed interested, the more they suppressed it. But he decided he was so fascinated. Now, don't forget, there was no Google in 1980s. So he's doing his own research about Judaism in the library and encyclopedias and books that he gets. And he goes to the rabbi in his community, Rabbi Schusterman, and he asks the rabbi, he says, I really am fascinated and I love this Judaism and my kids are Jewish, so I would love to convert. And what does the rabbi say? Go Aveh. Futzuk. Maybe he said it more politely, but the rabbi's not being very encouraging. As you know, that's what rabbis generally do when people come. And after rejection and rejection, it's creating some tension. But unfortunately, one day, this man, David, goes to the doctor and he gets a terrible diagnosis. I don't remember exactly what, but it wasn't a good diagnosis. And in fact, the doctor said he has very limited time left to live. He better put his affairs together, sort it out, because he's not here much longer. David doesn't know what to do. He's got 3 months left to live according to the doctor's prognosis. And he makes his way to the rabbi. Because one of the affairs he has to take care of. He says, Rabbi, you won't let me live as a Jew? I want to die as a Jew. The rabbi says, no, you can't do this. You're a good man, David. You're a wonderful Protestant. Just leave it. Right? Yeah, we're going to convert somebody just because he's dying and he has this passion. The truth is, I want to tell you that Israel posthumously converted somebody last year or 2 years ago, a soldier who was on the conversion process. I don't remember the exact details. It was before he went to Gaza or just after, or when he came back, because he wanted to be a Jew and they let him die as one. But that was the story, and Rabbi Schusterman was not listening. So what did David do? He wrote a letter to the Rebbe, okay, in New York. And I want to read the letter to you. Okay, here's the letter. It's dated 23 Sivan, 5746, 1986. I want to read this letter to you. The Rebbe, it's written, Mr. D. Willer, 2035 Jarvis Street, Chicago, Illinois, and has his address and everything. Greeting and blessing. Shalom Abracha. Your letter of 5 Sivan has reached me. I hasten to reply to it ahead of its turn because of the importance and urgency of the subject matter. I want you to just put in perspective, the Rebbe was 85 years old then and still giving talks and teachings and standing for hours to give dollars and blessings. And the Rebbe is also getting tons and tons of letters, and yet he's taking the time to write back. Just think about, some of you are similar age, letters we get to write a day, not so easy, but the Rebbe took the world on his shoulders. And let's read the Rebbe's letter to him. Since you write that you are resolved to make a halachically recognized conversion, there's no need for me to explain to you at length that there's only one kind of gerus to become a Jew, a conversion carried out in accordance with Jewish law, halacha. For to become a Jew is not something external, but something that changes the very essence of the person and imbues the convert with a new soul, a Yiddish neshama that is part of godliness above. This is something which only the Creator of all souls can do, and it is achieved with the conversion when the conversion is carried out according to the Creator's instructions, as embodied in the halacha by rabbis who do not only know the halacha but live according to the law in their everyday life and conduct, namely, competent Orthodox rabbis. Okay. Accordingly, you have to get in touch with this rabbi in your city, and he will tell you what you have to do to fulfill your heart's desire for good, to become truly and honestly a member of the Jewish faith. It's only 2 more paragraphs. Let me read it to you. It is noteworthy that this month is Sivan, the month of Matan Torah, and this is the week where we read about the receiving of the Torah, right? It's particularly auspicious for the above. Your letter is dated Erev Shavuos, the festival of Matan Torah, when the entire Jewish people became converts to Judaism, designated and transformed by accepting the Torah and the kingdom of Hashem. Okay? May Hashem grant that you should have only good news to report also about your physical health. No doubt you know that with a Jew, it's not only the soul that is holy, but also the body receives a spiritual sanctity. In the words of the Torah, the soul is holy and the body is holy too. And with both of them together, you'll serve Hashem with joy and gladness of heart. Would you believe it that this man is still around today? He converted to Judaism. Not only did he get a new soul, but he got a renewed body. Isn't that a fascinating story? What's that? No, he wasn't Jewish. He wasn't Jewish. His lineage was not Jewish, and here he is today, converted to Judaism, and he's alive and well, and I have a picture of him here standing in Chicago, and also the rabbi who converted him. Fascinating story. So what was I getting to here? We were talking about the creation, we were talking about Tu B'Shvat, And we're saying is that as an adult, as children, we were reading, that's what we started with, the letter the Rebbe wrote to the kindergarten children, which is why I digressed and deviated and told you now the story of the other letter Rebbe. But I want to go on from here. As we grow older, each one of us becomes leaders in our communities, right? We have families. We're leaders of our children. Maybe we are influencers in our shul or our workplace or wherever you go, right? Or your grandchildren. They are our fruit. Our fruit is not limited to biological children. When I say fruit, it's anyone and everyone who you have an impact on in your life. And there are so many people who you impact. Students, friends, you name them, right? And this is something the Torah says, that we're all created in the divine image. And God gave a mitzvah to Adam and Eve to be fruitful and multiply. And I want to say that Judaism says this is not only being fruitful and multiply, is not only applying to the biological children we have, but I believe it very much has an impact on every person. Our students are like our children. You know what I'm saying? We have an impact on the community, on our sphere of influence around us. I want you to pause for a second and to think, who do you have an influence on? Maybe the Uber driver who brought you here. You had a nice conversation and put a smile on their face, and the ripple effect of the smiles they keep putting on other people's faces. Think about all the different people. When you went shopping at Pick and Pay, and the people you inspired, the lady who you were nice and kind to, the car guard who you gave 5 rands to and you made his day. There are so many people you could have an impact and influence on. Don't underestimate. So just to summarize these ideas, we're going to go till 12 o'clock. But on a spiritual level, we said the roots represent our faith, our source of nurture and perspective, our perseverance, that regardless of what we've gone through, we know that we can all continue and we will continue and that we will have an impact on the world around us, no doubt, right? Each one of us has a tremendous influence and impact on so many people. We shouldn't underestimate it. We're all role models. Okay, we are all role models. There are people who look up to us. So we should aspire to inspire so we don't expire. Okay? And without the roots, we know the tree can't survive. So therefore, I want to show you another interesting thing the Rebbe says in this letter. It's a long letter, so I'm not going to go through everything. But in this letter, the Rebbe, let me read letter 2. He says, trees are made up of 3 general sections: roots, trunks, and fruits. Roots are concealed from the eye, but they hold the main vitality of the tree. The roots are what keep the tree standing strong. With strong roots, one need not worry that strong winds will uproot the tree. Yes? Interestingly, I saw a very big tree the other day that collapsed on our street. I've been seeing that lately. And I have no doubt after last night's storm, there's more trees that collapsed. And what's interesting about that to me is, why did that tree that looked so strong, had such a big trunk? Maybe there's a problem in the roots. Because in this letter, the Rebbe tells us that the roots are our faith. They are our faith. With faith, one connects to the core and source of their life. God, the Creator. Even after one grows, when you have strength in your Torah and your mitzvahs, then your energy stems from that faith in Hashem. Nothing can break that faith. No capricious winds can destroy it. The second point, he says, is the trunk. The trunk is the larger bulk of the tree. As time goes on, it's going to get wider and more branches and leaves, and it's specifically from the trunk's width that you can even know its age. Like me, you could see as my width is growing, you could see I'm getting older. It's harder to trim down, to get slimmer as you get older. Says the Rebbe, the trunk, this is the Torah you study and the mitzvahs you do. And these must take up the larger bulk of one's life, the good deeds you perform. According to one's deeds and Torah study, we can know their spiritual age. Meaning, do you live your life with purpose, with meaning? Yeah, could you relate to that? Let's look at the third point, he says. The third is the fruit. And that's the ultimate point of a tree, that it could bear fruits. Again, we said before, what's our fruit? What fruit do we bear? It's not only your children. Yes, your children are your fruits, but I would say your fruits are also the people you influence. You learn Torah, teach others Torah. In fact, I remember when I read that first in Sean Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teenagers, who was basically paraphrasing his father's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens, who basically took a lot of ideas from Dale Carnegie. Book, the Alter Rebbe says in the introduction in the Tanya, says that he should keep himself, but have a chesed, study with someone else. And there's a double benefit when you study with other people. Is it? Meir Einei Shneim. When you study with them, listen, it makes you both eyes of people, crystallizes the idea for you, and now you just taught another Jew. So I want to say the same thing. You know, when I read that in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens, I'm doing that not only reading books. My mother was the best sounding board. My mother, she loved, I did my homework with her while cooking supper. I would tell her the Gemara I learned that day. You know what that did for me? My mother, a blessed memory, would sit and listen to me learning Gemara. And my learning Gemara crystallized it for me. And then my mother would have questions the next day. What did you learn in the Gemara today? And it was amazing. That's what my mother did with me. And that's what I want to say. Well, to me, my mother is looking after the fruit of her tree. But that doesn't just apply to biological children. That applies to anyone who you could have an influence on. Anyone who you do a good deed with is also a child for you in that way. And I encourage everybody to realize that when you have the opportunity to inspire other people. So again, we said on the spiritual roots, we spoke about our faith, which is the foundation. That's the roots. And it's important that you have this unbreakable connection, that you have strong faith. When you have strong faith, what happens to the tree? What happens to the fruit of the tree? They have a better chance of being healthy, right? They have a better chance because there's this unshakable connection, a conviction in Hashem. And that's connected to the very essence and the core of our being. So the first thing is to make sure that the faith, the roots, are strong. The second point the Rebbe said in this letter was, from our faith stems the trunk of our understanding, from which our feelings and our motivations and our good deeds branch off, right? So the trunk is the visible body of our spiritual selves, our intellectual, our emotional, our practical achievements, all the things we do. When we study Torah, when we do mitzvahs, we refine our personality. We are more observant of God's commandments. What happens? We refine our values, our ethics, our morals, the way we conduct our lives. That's ultimately what we want to do. And so the true extent of our faith, although it's concealed, lesson from this past week. In the parsha past week, we learned about manna, from heaven, right? And what did the people call this food? They called it man. What is it? That's what man means. What is it? So our sages tell us something fascinating. The Talmud says that for the righteous people, the manna fell at their doorstep. Maybe inside their house, it was delivered to them. That was only for the holy righteous. The tzaddikim and tzidkanios, the holy righteous men and women. There were so many. They got it delivered like checkers 60-60. Straight to your house, right to your door. The people in were mainly average. They didn't get a delivery into their door. It was dropped outside. They had to still open the door, go out and collect it. The wicked people, the mischievous troublemakers, they had to go outside at a little distance in order to collect their man. And I think sometimes about, what did this say? Sometimes I think somebody, that guy, that person, who are they? A shnuk, a shlenter, a shlemiel, a shlemazel. That I tell you the difference, 3 types of people. The shlemazel and nudnik. The shlemiel is the one who spills the soup. The shlemazel gets the soup spilled on them. And the nudnik, what kind of soup it is. So here we have the righteous person. Who knows who's righteous? Hashem says, everybody's righteous, or potentially so. All of a sudden you say, that person's right. Yeah, that person got the delivery right into the door. You knew they were righteous. Some people pretend to be righteous. Now you saw they had to go out there and collect. So we know it's not for us to judge people. We don't need to be judgmental of others. We need to just judge ourselves and ask, am I in the right way? And if I study the Torah and do the mitzvahs, I know I'll be in the right path. Yes.
Rabbi Kiffin,
Yeah.
with Carl Jung, he said, thinking is hard, that's why people judge.
People think, yeah, it's hard. You know, the Rebbe said, quoting Carl Jung, let's go for a second onto Freud. Freud dug into the human psyche and uncovered the id. The Rebbe said he was Jewish. He should have dug a little deeper and he would have discovered the yid. And I encourage all of us to do that too, because we all have the deep roots. And all we need is uncover that. We have it. It's part of our roots. It's part of who we are. Our parents, grandparents, and all those who preceded us invested in us for this day. And we, in turn, are investing for our children and grandchildren. Like the story of Chani Amago that I told you a few weeks ago. You remember the story? When he sees the elderly gentleman planting a tree. And he says to the old man, you're planting a boxer tree? A tree of carobs? You know how long it will take for that tree to harvest, to grow? The man said, yeah, a very long time. The Talmud says it took 70 years. And like Rip Van Winkle, Chani Amago fell asleep for 70 years. Who came first, Chani or Rip Van Winkle? But either way, we'll get to the lessons of that story another time. But the idea is people came before us and invested for us and planted for us so that we could reap and harvest and enjoy. Hazor and Bedima, when you plant with tears, berima yiksaru, with joy, you'll reap the benefits. Let's look at the third element. We discussed the body of the tree. Now let's look at the fruits, which is so important because the fruit represents the power of spiritual procreation. Not only biological, but I'm talking about that influence, the seeds you plant in others. You don't have to be a rabbi or rebbitzin to plant seeds. You don't have to be a teacher in school. A kid can plant in others. And the Torah puts tremendous value specifically in fruit trees. Do you know that when you're fighting wars, what does the Torah say? There are specific commandments forbidding us from chopping down our enemies' fruit trees. You know that? When Israel's fighting in Gaza, you got to be careful. Even though we have every right to be fighting the Gazans, you can't unnecessarily chop down a fruit tree, right? So while the body of the tree provides our nurture through its leaves, we have to remember that represents the nurture that comes from the Torah and the mitzvahs. The bulk of our spiritual sustenance comes from what? Obviously, it's derived from the roots, from our conviction that life has meaning and purpose. That's our faith. That's somebody at the core of reality that cares. We have to remember that message and that lesson. And just a couple of more minutes, I want to get to one more important point from, you had a question? For the first 3 years, yes. Yes, that's true. For the first 3 years, you cannot eat from that tree. That is called Arla. And then we have the laws of Bikurim, that even the first fruits that you do enjoy, you bring to Jerusalem. We know that a child, when they turn 3 years old, we perform an upshar. The upshar is like the first fruit. We want it in a spiritually proper way. So we know that each of us on a deeper level, the reason for the Torah's specific emphasis on a fruit tree that cannot be cut is because it represents the most important aspect of a human being, and that is, what is the whole idea of fruit? The influence, the impact, the contribution to the world that we make. Our purpose will not be fulfilled if we lived as hermits in the forest and the desert or in our own little space, only by having an impact on others. I know some people find it difficult to get out. I understand. But let me tell you, especially with all your years of experience, you can have an impact and you can contribute so much to the world. So don't say I'm a senior citizen and I'm past my sell-by date and all that stuff. You have plenty to contribute. You have plenty to say, to share, to teach, to influence the world around you. And that, my friends, is part of who we are and our purpose and mission. And only by having an impact on others in whatever way you can. Let's think about Cynthia. Cynthia, you could have retired long ago. You could have lived. But I'm convinced you are so healthy and beautiful and well because you contribute so much. You donate your time. And the same thing, Rebbe and Miriam, the same thing so many others in this room. So many of our seniors are mentors to others. Some of you work with OrtJet and other organizations in the community. So I'm only picking on two, but there's so many of you. And you all can do the same. When you are, and by the way, I'm going to give you opportunities here. I need to tell you some dates we have picked. We have our Mata Matzah factory coming up. Anyone who wants to be involved in packing shalach manas, we give out thousands of shalach manas. I can't say the exact number right now. You can get it from Sharon. She does the ordering. Thousands of shalach manas that we give out. Probably over 1,000 just the senior citizens alone, between all the nursing homes that we distribute to in the community, and all the schools and all the shuls with our Chabad al Shalach Manas. So you want to pack Shalach Manas? We'll give you a chance next week, like some of you did last year. You could pack the Shalach Manas in whatever way you could contribute to society. Don't say I'm done, because if you think you're done, if you believe you're done, then most likely you will be done, right? Same goes with our brain. You don't use it, you lose it. And everything else, your abilities. And it disturbs me, some of the people who can't come. Okay, some people can't come because they don't have transport and we don't have the bus working now, etc. It's not roadworthy and the costs, etc. I'm really far behind in our fundraising missions. I didn't do one last year. I'm behind this year. We're falling behind. But every one of us can contribute one way or another. And that is what I want to share with you for today. How can you define your mission here in this world? What can you do still to make a difference? And that, my friends, is the message and lesson of today's shiur. The entire the entire purpose of a fruit tree is to give fruit, right? And that's why the Torah tells us not allowed to cut down a fruit tree if for no reason. However, when you study the Talmud, it says that a tree that is no longer giving healthy fruit, it's very halacha, is allowed to be cut down. Why? It's no longer serving its function, its purpose. It's no longer producing fruit. It's not serving a productive purpose in this world. And we know that if a person's not serving their purpose, then people forget about them. So I'm saying, maybe I'm not saying it in the most refined, articulate way, but what I'm saying to you is each one of us has a purpose. You have talents, you have abilities, you have experience, you have whatever it is that you could contribute. Where are our books back there? Vussi didn't put it out today. He's going to get in big trouble. Ooh. You have your pearls. Share your pearls of wisdom, your advice for life, right? And whatever it is, for one person, it's giving charity. For another person, it may mean giving guidance, inspiration, mentoring, teaching, right? Whatever you could give a helping hand to somebody. You could give an encouraging word. There are so many ways you can make a difference in this world. And that's my lesson for us today. Every person in this room, every person joining us on Zoom, on YouTube, you all have the opportunity and the ability that we are still, doesn't matter your age and stage, you are still fruit bearing. Share what you have with the world. Share what you have with others. You go back to Silwood Lodge, to Willowbrook, you go back to Sandringham Gardens, you go back to your home, you go back to your community, you go back to your complex, wherever you go. You teach the Torah, you could share inspiration. Don't hold it on for yourself, you'll forget it. It's part of human condition. On Chai FM, I listen to the news, I try to listen to the currency exchange rate. I forget it 2 seconds later. But maybe if I were to tell it to my wife or to my kids or to somebody, I would remember it. That's what I want to say. You have so much to share. Share that bounty with others. Maybe it's in a conversation with somebody you meet. Maybe it's with an employee. Maybe it's with a relative. Maybe it's with your sibling. Maybe it's with your spouse. Maybe it's with a friend, a neighbor, whoever it is. But you study Torah. Don't forget it. Share it. Share it with others. And thereby you will inspire them to grow. And no doubt that will be helping you to grow too. For today, which we are going to conclude in a moment, and the lesson is that each one of us hopefully remembers, as the Talmud says, that one who teaches their friend Torah, it's as if they raise them. They become your child, the person you teach Torah to. So my friends, hopefully now we can understand the meaning of the Torah statement that a human being is like a tree of the field. And we discussed this on 3 levels. There's who we are, our roots, where we come from, who we think we are, which is our trunk, and who others think we are. That's the influence, the impact of our fruits, whether it's our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, family, friends, anyone we have an influence on. And that's my thought, that in a tree, these three components are actually integrated into one single wholesome entity. And our job, the Torah is intimating to us, is to integrate the components of our tree. Ki ha'adam eitz hasada, man is like a tree. That our roots, our bodies, and our fruits should all become one. That is the message and lesson that we have to think of today. How we can influence and inspire others. And my exit question for you to think about is, knowing yourself better than anyone else knows you, ask yourself, are you a fruit-bearing tree? Are you influencing and teaching and inspiring others? And if your answer is not enough, then your homework for today is to increase the influence and the good deeds that you're doing. And tomorrow, please God, we're going to continue the discussion. We're going to take it a step further. We're going to ask, are we like a bird, like a wall, or like a tree? And tomorrow you'll see the difference between them. Enjoy lunch, enjoy the Tu B'Shvat Seder, enjoy every moment, and carpe diem chaparain, every moment of life. Aspire to inspire before you retire so that you won't expire. And we say yesterday's history, tomorrow's a mystery. But today is a gift of God, which is why it's called the present. So remember the past, live the present.